All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Welcome. This is a big day for us. We got a lot going on today. On the show, after the show, and then tonight. So, all I'm saying is we need to peak today, everybody. I'm talking to you, my crew, my what do you want, colleagues, I guess would be the word. Talking to you, Kim. You got to peak today.
Kim, how are you?
Entourage. You could say entourage.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, entourage. I'll take it.
Be part of the entourage.
Albert is on board today.
Albert, thank you.
Did you tweet yet, Albert, or not?
I'm going to press post after I finish this last sentence. Yep, I'm ready.
Very, very good. Okay. Today, we will do a lot, as I've just said. We're going to remember Bob Barker, who was a brilliant talent and also a brilliant supporter of animals. And he did it before it was cool, you know. And when I say supporter, I don't mean he just had a slogan at the end of The Price is Right, which is like, make sure to get your pet spay and neutered. I mean, that would be fine and it would be great, but he did way more than that. And so we'll talk about Bob Barker, but I'm also wanting to talk about Bob Barker, the talent and the guy, with his longtime friend and publicist. Roger Neal will be with us in just a couple of minutes. I also want to mention that Karen Dawn will be here. Because she talks about animals on the show in a new segment we've just started on Mondays. And she'll be here and kind of put Barker in that context also. Yes, I have Trump stuff. Yes, I have Trump dates. Yes, I have chunk of Trump if there's time. And much in that area. So those of you who expect politics, you'll get it. Don't worry. I also wanted to mention that we have a children's author with us in the next hour, and it's really cool. The book is very. Is that the sound of? That's the sound of keys typing. Is that Kim preparing her next newscast?
It's very busy in the newsroom here.
Oh my gosh, it's very exciting. I felt like I was in.
Kim, how are you?
Yes,
right?
Involved in the process.
I'm just saying.
She's written a book about a message sent in a bottle, literally picked up by a little girl in Cuba, and the back and forth between someone who picked up that message and the little girl in Cuba. Isn't that essentially what it is? It's called...
Other way around, yes. It was the little girl. I'm not sure if it was a girl in Cuba.
She sent the message.
I don't know. One or the other. We'll find out.
Arletta's Abuelo and the Message in a Bottle is the name of the book. So Lea will be here for that. So that is much to do. So I will get to... I'll get to a lot of this agenda in a second, but there is breaking news of the moment, and it's kind of consistent with a lot of stuff that we talk about on the show. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
A trial date in this Trump trial. He's the head of the spear in this wide-ranging conspiracy in Georgia, but also January 6th looms. There's that trial as well. And so this just breaking news in the last hour. Albert?
So the first thing we need to understand is this may not be the absolute date set in stone, March 4th, but it will be somewhere close to that. Trump's legal team will have the opportunity to offer motions and may slow things down, but it's going to be March or April of next year. And that is much, much closer to the prosecution's wishes than the Trump defense team suggested. April 2026 was something that the judge said was simply unreasonable. She also said January 2024 was unreasonable. But the most important part of this is this trial will occur in the calendar year 2024 and months before the nominating convention for Republicans in Milwaukee. Now, politically, what does it mean? Well, yes, if you look at the calendar, March 4th, if that is in fact when jury selection begins, that's one day before Super Tuesday, 16 contests in the nominating battle for Republicans. However, March 4th is also well after the Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire primary, and South Carolina primary. And if Trump, who leads all three of them right now, wins those three, the battle for the nomination, Lea, will effectively be over, and Super Tuesday will be merely confirmation of that. And so this trial date of March 4th, if it holds, may not have the political impact it appears looking at it abstractly right now.
Perfectly
Such
good,
a
Albert. Thank you.
dense time for
That
news.
I thought was the important part, that last little part, politically, right, which is that this guy is leading in every poll by a lot. It's hard to, I mean, much is made of this, both political hay is made of it and just sort of general discussion is made of the fact that this timing coincides with Super Tuesday. But the reality is by then,
Super Tuesday. I mean, I just, do you think that maybe the judge should have paid attention to what was on the calendar that day? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know how you balance, I don't know how you land all of the judicial planes that are landing on the Trump runway. In Trump land, he's got a lot of different court cases working. I think you have to establish the docket when you establish it. I also feel as though what I was just about to say, though, was the important thing, and I think it's worth underscoring, is he leads by so much that Super Tuesday really just may be an afterthought. I don't think Donald Trump is going to need Super Tuesday based on the way the party's breaking so far. I mean, it would take something extraordinary to happen to, I think, turn this race into something else and for Super Tuesday to be in any way significant. So
It just feels to me like it plays right into his hands. You see, they're trying me the day before this election. You see what's happening here. I mean, I can hear it now.
Well,
And
you know something? Here is something that I really feel the left and the libs worry about too much. They worry about that. Oh, but what are they going to say? Oh, my God, we need to change the venue. Make sure that let's move the venue to West Virginia, where it's all Trump people, and they'll convince. No, when they moved the venue to Florida, we're going to do it in Florida. That way there'll be no sense that there could be any sort of conflict. That was a huge misstep to do it in Florida. I'm talking about the documents case now, okay? Just to keep your and David Katz agrees with me. He thought it was a mistake also to do it in Florida. So, but it's born of what you're talking about, Kim, which is I don't want to give him ammunition, in effect, to politically come after us. You spend so much, not you personally, that group on the left spends so much time worrying about what they're going to say about it, the right, that you shoot yourselves in the foot. And I also think you're dealing with a ruthless right. In general, the GOP is ruthless. Look at where they held out the Supreme Court seat. I mean, they'll get what they want. So I just feel as though, look, I'm not suggesting you break the law at all. What I'm suggesting is that you follow the law and follow the schedule and follow the docket wherever it takes you, without regard to what they're going to say. Look, they just rolled back women's reproductive rights in this country at the Supreme Court level. Did they worry about what was going to happen? There were huge protests nationwide after this. Did the Supreme Court justices worry about it? No. They made that judgment. And I think a little of that attitude has to be adopted when pursuing some of these cases against Trump. Now, I don't know if the case against Trump is legally, this has nothing to do with the law. Mm-hmm. This just has to do with that which you're talking about, which is reacting ahead of time to what they might say.
Well,
I think you just have to not worry
there's a
about
difference between a decision from the Supreme Court or a moving of a venue versus a setting of a date. And the setting of the date is all about, I mean, if it's the day before Super Tuesday, it doesn't look good. I just don't like the way that it can be perceived. That's all I'm saying. And I think there's a difference.
I know that there is a difference between the decision of the Supreme Court and the setting of a date, please.
Right.
What I'm talking about is the worry about the reaction. You're saying it looks bad, and it may look bad. Yeah. But by the same token, it's the date she chose. I mean, beyond that, we can talk to David K. Johnston tomorrow about this. I also want to talk to him about this 14th Amendment thing. There's a lot of question as to whether or not Donald Trump should essentially not be permitted to run because he was involved and aided in an insurrection, an attempted overthrow of the country. It's a 14th Amendment, and it's being argued by Federalist Society members who are conservative lawyers. I want to speak to that, and I want to talk to David K. Johnston about that tomorrow. But we'll ask him about the Super Tuesday thing as well. And, of course, you've got Rothman on Wednesday, and you also have David Katz on Thursday. So all of that's still to come. But the trial date being established is important, so I just wanted to get it out there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Really love Bob Barker. I thought Bob Barker was a brilliant talent. You know, he makes it look easy, but it's not easy to do that show and a lot of shows that involve stuff coming and going and audience members and interaction and making it funny and fun. And I mean, this guy, you know, he did Truth or Consequences and he did Price is Right. Of course, he's known mostly for Price is Right. But he had such warmth and he was so quick and funny and up for anything. And he just passed away at 99. He was a long-standing and prominent advocate for animal rights and a 35-year run as host of the new Price is Right, as it was then known. It made its debut on CBS as a revised and jazzed-up version of the original Price is Right. And he, I just thought him beyond Price is Right to be a man of principle. You know, he was a host of Miss USA and Miss Universe. People may not remember this. He quit as the MC of both Miss USA and Miss Universe.
What?
Why? Why? Because they gave fur coats as prizes. Mm-hmm. He also protested the mistreatment of animals by their trainers on the sets of various movies and on television shows. He ended up every installment, of course, of The Price is Right by saying, help control the pet population, have your pet spay or neutered. From Darrington, Washington, his father was a power line foreman. Died from complications of an injury that he got in a fall from a pole. He lost his dad when he was in 1929. I mean, this guy really saw the medium of television grow, and then he slipped right in and became this amazing host. Started as a DJ, and then became this great host. His death was announced by his longtime friend and his spokesman, publicist, Roger Neal. And is Roger with us now?
I don't think so. Not
No?
yet. Mm-mm.
Let me see if I'm Albert, were you involved in
Murphy
I can't get the
this.
StreamYard on.
Uh-oh. Murphy
Boy,
writes this.
and I really set it up so beautifully too. Sorry about that. Yeah.
She says, I saw this meme on Instagram yesterday. Gotta hand it to Bob Barker. He went right up to 99 without going over 100. A true pro.
Yeah, I'd heard that. It's very funny. You can link on your phone. I think you can link on his phone, can't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think
if
so
he just
too.
clicks on his phone, it'll just. Here we go.
And there he is. There he is. There's
There
Roger
he is.
Neal. Yeah, all right. Bravo, bravo. Here he is, his longtime friend and spokesperson who had to make the grim announcement yesterday, but really can give us some reflections on a personal relationship and a professional relationship with the great Bob Barker. He's Roger Neal, everybody. Hey, Roger Neal.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm well, sir. You always look great. I was just talking about how terrific your friend Bob Barker was as a talent, but also what a tremendous guy he was when it came to his activism around animals, too.
Yeah, we talked about this over the weekend. He left a legacy, a double legacy for animals and all the things he did for animals, public and private. Some things he did for animals people don't even know about. And then there was the TV host legacy that he left that people will forever remember, and generations of anybody who wanted to be a TV host starting in the 60s and 70s, they looked up to Bob Barker. He was the one that they wanted to be like. So he left I think he leaves a double legacy.
Yeah, it's interesting. His skills as a host were not limited to the game show. I'd mentioned the pageants. He was, he just was one of those super versatile and incredible. I'm going to say this, pardon the comparison, but I feel, and this may be personal taste too, he was like Ryan Seacrest, but I would suggest to a even greater ability. I mean, like Seacrest can get you there and he's fine, but I think that Bob Barker was fun. There was a fun element to Barker that he interacted with real people in all of these fun ways. I thought as a host, he really was like without peer.
I agree with you, Mark. Barker was one. I always say Barker was one of a kind. He can't be duplicated and he can't be replicated, and no one's going to be able to. I don't think anybody will be able to fill his shoes. They may try, but I don't think they're going to fill his shoes at all.
And I guess what I was mentioning with Ryan was just the ubiquity. Ryan's on everything. And there was a time when Bob Barker was the go-to guy for that also. I guess that's what I meant in mentioning Ryan. But I just felt that Barker will give you a little bit of the unexpected. He didn't mind working a little edgy. You know what I mean? It was really, yeah.
Yeah, Barker, he had this love affair with the audience and they had a love affair with him, and with Barker, he was sort of the king of ad-libs. Right? He could ad-lib just in a split second. Whenever you see contestants run up on the stage to hug him, kiss him, he had no idea what was coming his way. Ever. Never did he have an idea what was coming his way. And there were some great moments in television that you won't see anywhere else except for The Price is Right. And even going back to Truth or Consequences. I mean, even when you mentioned the pageants, I first started working with Bob Barker in 1987. I was handling the Miss USA and Miss Universe pageants for CBS. And my first introduction to him was on the floor of the Cow Palace in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I got him through and the pageant through the fur controversy. And at the end of that show, he turned to me and said, "You're hired. I haven't had this much media attention in years." And that's where our working relationship started.
That's great. And he was really he was involved in animal activism before it was cool. I mean, here's a guy who came up in a very look at that, even the publicity pic of him we're showing now. This very straight world. And when I say straight, I mean it was everything was very buttoned down in America, very conservative. I mean the explosion of the late '60s and early '70s that blew it all up. But until then, it was really post World War II kind of a post Korea kind of buttoned down world. And Barker, he had that look, but he could also be playful. And as I say, he took on these causes that weren't cool at the time.
Yeah, I got baptized by fire with him with the animal rights, with Miss USA pageant 1987. But by the way, we got so much press. It ended up being the #1 show for the night, the week, the month, and #3 network special for the year. Miss USA still has never topped those ratings, and it's thanks to Bob Barker and all of his work with animal rights that we had to do that balance, that juggling act on that show, which for a 25-year-old guy. Who just got a shot to handle a major network special and working with the host who was the iconic Bob Barker. It was just a crazy. My head was spinning.
How did you? Let's just go back to that. So essentially, Barker. I was telling everyone this, I think, before you came on. Barker essentially said, "Hey, you're giving away a fur as a prize. I'm not going to do it. I won't host it."
Yeah, so I was on the floor of the Cow Palace, and they were in rehearsals, and the girls were in the swimsuit rehearsals. And back then, the Flemington Fur paid the pageant $2 million a year to be a sponsor. And I was there. I was introduced to him. They were doing the rehearsing top 10 in their furs. And I got called into the president's office about an hour later, and the president said, "Hey, I think you've met Bob Barker." I said, "Yes, I have." And I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble somehow," And he said, "Listen," he said, "Barker is a animal rights activist. He cannot be seen on stage with the furs. Go to your hotel, take a few hours, and figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to make everybody look good." And I went to my hotel going, "Well, this was my first and last show with Miss USA. How great is that?" But my mind started thinking, and I made a phone call to Bob Wood, who happened to be on the floor of the doing a story for the CBS affiliate. And, we had a conversation, and the rest is history. And I was able to navigate both Barker and the pageant through that, it brought more attention to animal rights than there had been in years, and it brought attention to the Miss USA pageant. And so that's why he said at the end of the show, you know, you're hired. And then on that particular broadcast, they did wear synthetic furs on stage so Barker could do the show. And then after that, of course, after that show, they couldn't continue to do synthetic furs, and he decided, of course, to leave the show because of that.
Yeah, that's really something. In the end, he did push away from it. His last line on retirement,
Yeah.
he announced in '06, "I will be 83 years old on December 12th, and I've decided to retire while I'm still young."
But that's how he thought. I mean, Barker was young at heart. I mean, you know, I just realized today, Mark, when I started working with him in 1987, he was the same age I am now.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, give us a sense of on the personal side. That's a little bit of the kind of navigating his public profile. What was he about personally?
You know, the man you saw on TV is the man that you would encounter in personal life. Went to the house many times for meetings, and we met when I had a meeting with Barker. I looked like this, and he was in a swimsuit. We were sitting by the pool. He'd be relaxed, tanning. I'd be sweating. I mean, that was just. So,
he was married to his high school sweetheart originally, isn't that what it was? I say originally because I think she passed away. Yeah.
She did 1981. She died of cancer in 1981, and you know, every year he would go to her grave, and she loved Christmas, and Snoopy was her favorite, so he would take a Snoopy Christmas tree and put on her grave every year at Christmas time, and he did it until he just got to the point where he couldn't really go out and do things anymore.
Roger, in our last minute, I wonder if you can just give me an idea of what he must have had. He's made so much money through the years, and he devoted that money and channeled that money to all of these causes. I mean, PETA, Sea Shepherd, I think Mercy for Animals. I mean, these are just the ones that come to mind. Last Chance for Animals, I think, as well. But to all and I'm sure to a lot of adoption and spay and neuter projects. Is there any kind of legacy of his estate, if you will, that's being channeled to some of those same causes?
Yeah, the bulk of his estate will go to military organizations. It'll go to animal rights organizations like Sea Shepherd, like United Activists for Animals, Donkeyland. There's about 40 military and animal rights organizations that will get the bulk of his estate, and those were his wishes.
People ask me, this is a quote from the great Bob Barker. People ask me, what do you miss most about Price is Right? And I say, the money.
He followed that up with saying, and of course, and I miss the people too.
Exactly. He said, that's not really true. He said,
No.
I miss the people too. Yeah.
You know, with Barker, it was like with comedian. I handled Tim Conway for the last 5 years of his life, and the love that they feel from the fans, that's their oxygen. That's how they breathe. And Barker stayed young, I think, for so many years because the love that came back to him from the fans and the love he gave to them kept him going for so many years.
And you know, Roger, I'll say this last thing because I do want to mention it, and we're going to talk more about his activism in the second hour because we have an animal segment that we do regularly on Monday. It just happens to coincide. But I did want to mention his appearance in Happy Gilmore with Sandler was brilliant and vaulted him to another level. Just at that time, when I say, but you know what I'm saying, it established this other color to his personality and his abilities. And then they reprised it, didn't they, Roger? They did it on an award show, as I recall.
They did, and they did a couple things. So they did one with Barker in a hospital bed.
That was the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that was hysterical. And but he really liked Adam Sandler. He actually loved Adam Sandler. Adam was a really, they became, look at that generation gap, right? The age difference. But Barker was able to just click right in. As an actor, interestingly enough, you know that Barker appeared on an episode of Bonanza?
I did not know that. That's wild.
appeared on Bonanza, but I think this would, and he played himself on The Bold and Beautiful several times as well. But this movie right here introduced Bob Barker to a whole new generation of fans that became fans of his after Happy Gilmore came out. But he and Adam definitely had a great relationship. And Barker
and that the sketch they did, Roger, on the award show, Google it. It's on YouTube, so this very same platform. Because I can't show either one of these clips, obviously, for copyright reasons. So, but it's worth checking out. Barker, so talented, and his heart was purely in the right place. A real loss. I'm really sorry for the loss of your friend, but wow, 99 years, man. He did so much great work.
3 months from now, he would have turned 100. We were gearing up for the 100th birthday celebration. I had a lot of magazine covers that were going to be done. There's an exhibit at the Hollywood Museum right now that is there, and we were adding more things to it in anticipation of the 100th birthday. We thought he was going to be here to at least 100. You know, people like Bob Barker, you think are always going to be here forever. They're never going away. It's like when I handled Bob Hope the last 15 years of his life. He turned 100, and we thought, okay, he'll be around for a few more years. You know, he lived 3 months. He and George Burns had a bet they would each make it to 100, and they both did. So I just felt the same about Barker. He'll just be here. He's always been here my whole life. He'll just continue to be here. But he will be with us, by the way, because you can see the Barker era Price is Right episodes on Game Show Network. And if you go to social media, the Barker era clips are all over social media, even before he passed away. So people are still able to watch Barker.
He's got a great legacy of work. So glad to hear that. Roger, you're so sweet to join us. Really cool. I've known you for years also, and you're always you're such a pro. And it doesn't surprise me that you handled this great man.
I just want to know why you were never the announcer on The Price is Right. I think Mark Thompson has the greatest voices ever for TV or radio. And I'm just telling you, one of the greatest voices of all time. You hear that. You're like Barker. When you hear the voice, you don't have to see you. You know exactly who you are. It's Mark Thompson. I mean, what a great voice.
I could kiss you right now. Thank you. And I also want to know why I wasn't the voice of The Price is Right. All right, that's two of us. All right, Roger Neal, everybody. Thanks, Roger. Wow, really cool.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Just an immense talent. I was always so impressed with Barker. And I was also... again, probably most taken with his work in animal rights, you know. So, Kim's News, then Courtney comes in and weaves a mystery for us. Albert, is there anything else I need to know or need to do? No?
No, and I'm also with you wondering why you weren't also the host, the announcer for Price is Right.
Thank you, Albert. We don't have enough of that on this show. We really don't. By the way, while I'm talking to Albert, Kim, I must ask him how he feels about the Trey Lance. We mentioned Trey Lance last week, and now Trey Lance is he's what? Where is he now, Albert?
He's on the Cowboys, which is
he's a Cowboy, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see his career flourish with air quotes in Dallas, one of our favorite teams here in the Bay Area. Yeah.
Meantime, the 49ers, just for a moment, 49ers have a kicker problem, it would seem. What's the story with the 49er kickers, Albert?
It doesn't seem like drafting a kicker is smart, especially if it's early. I say that with quotes in the draft. I think we drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round, which puts an immense pressure. Kickers already have immense pressure for whatever limited we think their job is, but we think they only have one job, but it's usually at a high pressure situation. So adding more
but explain to people who are not explain to people what happened. Explain to those who might have missed the game. Why do we say we have a kicker problem?
Yeah, we drafted a kicker. He's not too good. He's also injured. We also traded for a kicker. That guy's also injured.
Yeah, so we have two kickers.
And then our punter was filling in, who doesn't do field goal duties. He's also injured. So
yeah, this reminds me of the end of the Niners last season at quarterback. You know, except you know. Anyway, so the Niners have a challenge around the kicker, and that's a critical role in the game. So, look, I'm okay with it, but Kim is beside herself about this.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah, so I just really am glad we got to it. Now,
feeling sad.
Courtney standing by. Smash the like
Smashed
button.
it with your iron rod.
Give us a thumbs up, kid.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Smash with your iron rod or whatever you got handy. Give us a thumbs up. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and here is the news. Any excuse to show that photo? Former President Trump's federal 2020 election interference case set to start next spring in the middle of the Republican presidential primaries, as Mark was mentioning. The Obama-appointed judge today scheduled the trial to start March 4th of 2024. That is the day before Super Tuesday.
I got indicted 4 times.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd brag about it, but all right, it's true.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Okay, all right.
Hurricane warnings are posted for parts of Florida, including the Tampa area, as Tropical Storm Idalia barrels toward that state. Forecasters expect the storm to intensify as it passes over western Cuba tonight. Models predict Idalia will become a dangerous major hurricane before making landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast by early Wednesday morning. So here she comes. Also in Florida, a couple people have died in a horrible accident where a rescue helicopter, crashed into an apartment complex. Happened this morning. 3 people were aboard the Broward Sheriff's Office fire rescue chopper when it went down in Pompano Beach. Several others were taken to the hospital. Again, at least 2 people have died in this helicopter accident. There was a pen show over the weekend. It was in Pleasanton. Wrong. It was in Millbrae. But a man from Pleasanton was arrested at the pen show. Here's what happened. Apparently, he stole thousands of dollars worth of pens, allegedly, from the San Francisco International Pen Show. Yes, pens, like writing implements.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knew there was a show about pens? I guess there's a show about everything.
But there are a lot of really cool pens, with all kinds of stone inlay. And
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like watches, you know what I mean?
So this event
There's never been anything like this.
Exactly.
Held at the Westin Hotel in Millbrae. It showcased, as Mark mentioned, vintage pens from all over the world. Hundreds of vendors came. You could buy and sell pens like a gun show, but without guns. Just pens. That's cool. Not so cool, though, when Carl Emmerich, according to police, stole more than 5,000 worth of pens and accessories as he walked through the event. This one's nice. Pocket. This one's nice.
Wow.
Pocket. The 72-year-old man eventually caught by staff, and all the stolen items were returned to their owners. Mr. Emmerich arrested and booked into the San Mateo County Sheriff's Jail. That was because he allegedly stole $5,000 worth of pen stuff. So,
Wow.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
Those stuck in traffic may wonder how much commuting to work actually costs them. You think it's expensive, it's expensive, but do you ever really sit down and figure it out? Well, in San Diego, the Chamber of Commerce aimed to answer this very question. They took the average commute time for workers in 170 of the populous cities in the country. Then they multiplied the time by the mean wage per minute pay rate. This gave them the average cost of the commute per year. San Francisco had the costliest commute at just over $12,500 per year. New York City ranked 5th in the nation, almost $11,000 per year.
Jeez.
Well, this working from home thing is looking better and better. Instacart will be issuing an initial public offering on Friday. The San Francisco-based grocery delivery company has been profitable for 5 straight quarters. PepsiCo has agreed to a private placement purchase of $175 million worth of Instacart stock.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, Courtney alone could, she should be have one of those, what do they call it?
A memorial plaque?
Stock sharing programs. Yeah. Yeah,
Here,
she should
thank
already
you.
have equity in that stinking company.
Top customer, Courtney on Instacart.
I would say, well, you can go to the store, honey. You don't have to actually have it delivered. There's sorry.
Who goes to the store anymore? That's so pre-pandemic, please.
Kim just finished saying how expensive commutes are, Mark. So
right.
yeah, exactly.
Somebody's paying attention to the news. Thank you, Courtney.
All right.
Criminy.
Thank God Instacart's not expensive. Okay.
Binance is losing 2 more crypto credit card markets. MasterCard will no longer offer Binance-branded cards in Latin America or in the Middle East. In July, Visa stopped issuing its Binance card that allowed European users to purchase goods with cryptocurrency. So it looks like cryptocurrency takes another blow. Lastly, there is a San Diego bike thief that went viral. He's under arrest thanks to an anonymous tip, and it's all because of his love for animals. See, if you're going to be a thief, you got to be a little cold-hearted, a little mean with sharp edges. No time to pet the dogs on the way out.
Yeah.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah, Joe Box and Little Anthony don't pet the dogs.
There's a video that shows a garage door with the door open. A man walks up and takes a $1,300 e-bike and begins to walk out. But as he's leaving, a golden retriever walks up to say hello. So the thief stops, walks the bike back into the garage, and spends about a minute giving the dog kisses and belly rubs before he escapes with the bike. He is a nice thief. The police say the suspect is a 42-year-old male. They haven't released his name yet. As far as the golden retriever, his name is Ace, and the San Diego police are on record calling him a very good boy. Yeah, very good boy. He's a good boy. This report is crowd-funded, which means we do rely on you. Please check us out at themarkthompsonshow.com. There you shall find the Patreon link and the PayPal link. Also, you'll find the podcast link and the merchandise link. Everything is there laid out for you in such a lovely way.
It's very link-heavy. I love that. I love a link-heavy site.
Links all the time.
Hot links, they call them, right? Because you can just click on them. And that's what they call them, Courtney. Hot links.
Sorry, this is a vegetarian show. I don't know who let you in.
No, well, they're veggie links.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
I got indicted 4 times. All trivia, nonsense.
Let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage?
Well, I got news for you. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing.
For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. If I can. I'll go slower this time. Now is not the time for on-the-job training.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here.
Yeah, what up, everybody? It's our big Monday show, and tonight is our virtual meet and greet. Sorry about that. Did I just blow out your ear? I'm trying to reach for this. I don't know, man. It's all crazy. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
I've got
it can go up a little bit.
Courtney in the studio here.
Thank
you. I was mentioning is our virtual meet and greet, which is something that we are looking at doing regularly. But this is the first sort of real effort to both make it accessible and make it special and make it fun. And so it goes down tonight. Now, it's not for broadcast, but if there's a little piece of or two that we might want to share, we'll ask everybody if we can share it, and we'll do that. But generally speaking, it's not for broadcast, so that'll be going down. And Kim will be there, I'll be there, Albert, et cetera. But fear not, there'll be another one maybe next month. So if you miss this one, there'll be another chance.
I blocked out the time. I told my family to leave me alone. The office door will be closed. The kids aren't supposed to come in and bother me. We'll see how it goes. We might have some cameos. I don't know.
Oh. Well, I mean, it's you got to have your chit ready, you know. Yeah, mommy's working. All On Mondays, we like to welcome in my other half, Courtney, who is a true crime freak. She's into that whole bizarre phenomenon, which a lot of other people are into as well. And we do it in a segment called Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Oh, man. The scream at the end really does establish the mood. It's Courtney, everybody.
Hi.
Courtney. You'll be joining us tonight for the,
Yes, I'll be there.
the virtual meet and greet.
Yeah.
What do you have for us today?
Today, I have a story about Linda Slayton, who was a mother who was killed. What's interesting about this story is they've been re-airing some of the specials around this particular murder. And so it's somewhat bubbled up in news articles in the last week, so I thought I would cover this.
Linda, Jeffrey, and Timothy Slayton are seen in this picture.
Yes. Actually, but I don't have that up on my
Oh, you don't?
StreamYard. Yeah.
Oh.
I can't see anything.
Well, that's okay. I mean, you can see it here maybe in the studio, or
Right.
If you want to move
Perfect.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Linda Slayton was a young mother, 31, of 2 boys. She is found murdered in her home in Lakeside, Florida.
And how was she?
She was strangled and sexually assaulted.
Oh, my God.
I know.
This is why I'm not into this stuff. All right.
And she's found by her sister, who had come over to have coffee with her. And the case goes cold. But what is interesting is that they find out who the murderer is 40 years later, and the murderer was within the community circle.
Oh, my God.
Exactly, yeah. So this is Linda. This is her son, Jeffrey, the somewhat taller young boy with the dark hair, and then Timothy has the blonde hair. So if you go to the next slide, she was a very devoted mother. She didn't have a lot of money, so she didn't have a car. The 2 boys were very active. Timothy played football, and Jeffrey was active in sports as well. And she had divorced their father because their father had been abusive. And so she moved to this new home in Florida, and she'd only been at this place for about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, a lot of stories talk about an apartment, but a lot of the photos they show is a house. So I don't know if it was like a complex that she lived in, but effectively on September 3rd of 1981, Timothy is driven home by the assistant football coach, and Jeffrey's at home with his mom, and Jeffrey and his mom get in a fight. And so Jeffrey leaves, and Linda's there, and she goes to a party with Timothy, and she comes back.
And Jeffrey's 13?
Jeffrey's 15, Timothy is 12, and Linda is 31.
Okay.
And so Jeffrey
he's in a fight. He left.
He's in a fight. He's angry. He leaves.
The other kid and
his mom go to a party.
Okay.
They all come home. That's September 3rd, 1981. On September 4th, Linda's sister comes over to have coffee and discovers the body when she sees that the screen of Linda's bedroom window is gone. And so she looks inside and realizes that her sister has been killed. If you go to the next slide. Sorry, it's easier for me if I can see this and go through all these visuals.
Can you see it?
So this is inside of the house, and that back door toward on the right-hand side, if anyone's looking at this or anyone watching this, that is Linda's bedroom. So the sister calls the police come. If you go to the next visual, so they take a sexual assault kit. There was actually sperm still there, so they recovered that and they kept it. But at that time, they didn't have any sort of DNA testing or anything that had related to that in sort of the criminal field. So they kept that. If you go to the next slide, there was an investigator, Sergeant Edgar Pickett, and he actually recovered a palm print from the windowsill of Linda's bedroom. Now, Linda had been she had been choked by a hanger that had come from her closet. And again, as I mentioned, she had been sexually assaulted. So it seemed like a crime of opportunity, but also that someone somewhat knew where her place was, where she slept, saw that opportunity with the window open. But Edgar Pickett was really important in finding this palm print because that's ultimately, in large part, how they found the criminal. Yeah.
So I'll stop for any questions here, but did you want to go to the next visual?
Yeah. So
next visual, please, Albert.
What's important is that Timothy was really close with his assistant football coach.
When you said assistant football coach, I knew that's the guy. That, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
I was going to go ex-husband or assistant football coach.
So the ex-husband, gave up had different interviews, gave up his DNA, but it didn't end up being him. Yeah. So this is actually a photo that Timothy put up in his room. And Timothy is all the way on the left-hand side. And then Coach Joe is actually just behind him. And so they take the DNA.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
No, they take the DNA from the crime scene. They have they connect it through genealogy research and genetic research, find the family, and then they end up confirming that it's Joe, Coach Joe. Joe Mills is his name. And also they find a palm print that was taken of Joe Mills in 1984 when he was arrested for grand larceny.
Wow.
And then they match that palm print that I showed you earlier from Edgar Prickett.
Wow. How about that detective
windowsill. Yeah.
So wait a minute. So the thing went down in 1982. When did they actually apprehend him?
1981, it went down. He was arrested in 2019.
Wow.
Yes. So here's the palm print from 1984 when he was arrested. He forged some sort of will and ultimately didn't go to jail, but was arrested, and his palm print was taken then. And then if you go to the next slide, so the next visual, the cops were surveilling him, took his trash to try to recoup a more recent DNA sample in 2019. And so that happened over the summer. And then December 12th, 2019, he was arrested. When he was arrested, he didn't even ask why he was being arrested, by the way. Yeah.
He knew. You guys got me.
Yeah.
But boy, he got away with it for a long
time. He was married. He still lived in Lakeland, Florida.
That's just sickening, isn't it?
Yeah. And actually, if they had pursued him further in 1981, because they did sort of like a cursory interview of anybody that had been near the house or the kids or the family, they would have discovered him as being a more a greater potential suspect in the case. Yeah.
So it was really, honestly, and I hate to put it this way, but kind of shoddy police work, or at least not intensely respectable police work initially, but then ultimately incredible police work and amazing dogged follow-up police work that actually apprehended him.
Yes.
That's really wild.
Yes, here he is, apprehended. This is Joseph Clinton Mills. You're right. I mean, it was a case that this Florida Community Police group sought after, continued to try to find and saw and, discover who this suspect was. And so it was really their commitment to it. And the two young boys, now obviously adult men, constantly checked in on the police and their pursuit of the suspect. And so actually in 2018, when the Golden State Killer was found through genealogy testing and mapping, that really started the use of that in sort of contemporary cold cases, and that in part reinvigorated this case.
Unreal.
Mm-hmm.
So this story ends as well as it could under the circumstances, right?
I think so.
With the apprehension of the guy who did it.
Under the circumstances. I mean, obviously, this guy going free for 40 years.
Well, that's why I said, I mean, you're right. Under the circumstances of him going free for 40 years. Yeah, okay, you're right.
Yeah. It's
this
a really
is very, very
case.
good stuff. Well, Courtney, another fascinating tale of the long arm of the law.
Yes.
Reaching out, maybe a little delayed in the reach, but...
Yes, no, I mean, it's a really interesting case because Coach Joe continued to drive Timothy to football practice.
That's just sick.
Even after Timothy and Jeffrey were living with their grandparents. And he would ask Timothy about the case and how close they were with suspects. And Timothy had that photo on his wall, even as an adult, because Coach Joe played such a pivotal role as a father figure because he was not close to his own father.
Wow,
so the depth to the deception of that relationship and the ongoing sort of connectivity that happened through his teenage years and childhood years.
Now I'd like to revise my statement. I don't think it was the best.
I mean,
now that you've told me this stuff, it's pretty twisted that they had a relationship with this guy who had killed their mother and they didn't realize it.
No, they didn't realize it. He's serving 3 life terms. So Joseph Conrad Wills will die, or Clinton, sorry, Wills will die in prison.
He should have started those 3 life terms. What? 38 years ago.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But now he's serving. So
Courtney, we'll see you tonight.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Another sad tale, troubling tale, but then in the end, they got their man.
Yeah.
All right.
He's getting what he deserves.
That's Mark's Murder Mystery Monday for
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Wow. Pretty wild. Those things always give me the creeps, But
it's not my cup of tea either, but it's
I know the kids like them, so we try to feature them, and she's way into it.
She always tells a tale that I hadn't heard of before.
Yeah, she always tells a tale that I don't know.
She's getting really good at kind of laying it all out there. And so now if someone mentions it, and I'll know exactly what they're talking about because Courtney has just served it up to me on a platter.
Yeah, she does. She hips us to the some of the recent stuff, some of the cold case stuff, and this had really a little bit of both. So, well, I have to tell you something.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
I wanted to tell you a story quickly from the weekend.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So yesterday, I was waking up with sort of a little bit of a hangover from the night before because Saturday night I went to a party. I don't go to a lot of parties much anymore, but this was a big party that my friend was throwing, and it was called a party for no reason, and he had like valet, and he's got like those people in those golf carts that take you from here to there, and it was just like very, exactly, fancy schmancy, very mature, okay. So, he's got a food station and a bar, of course, and then he has a psychic. Oh. So the line for the psychic is like really long. It's clearly a good thing to book at a party is a psychic. If it's a party not for kids, you know what I mean? It's the equivalent of like the bouncy house for kids. Everybody wants into the psychic. So there might have been 7 people waiting to see the psychic, and I'm told each person gets 10 minutes. So it's like, no thanks. So I'm kind of hovering in that area. And all of a sudden, this woman who's a bartender comes up and goes, "You're up. I put you on the list and you're next." It's like, oh, okay. So I decided, okay, I'll do the psychic thing. And I come over to the psychic, and she's this, maybe she's 30, blonde. She's got a cool, like, draped across the top, poster-ish thing, or banner would be what it would be, with her more in sort of a, psychic looking kind of thing, like those oftentimes women who have the head scarf and they're looking into a crystal ball. It was like one of those pictures, okay. So I sit down and she said, "I'm going to ask you to ask me a question that you want to know the answer to."
That just tells the whole story, doesn't it? That just gives everything away.
So
Cheater.
Well, if you thought that gave it all away, wait till you listen. So I said, okay. I'm not used to that. She even said, "This is you might find this unorthodox, but this is the way I work." So I am thinking, and she's kind of just talking. She wasn't really saying anything. She said, "I need a moment to kind of get your energy," and blah 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 blah. And then she said, "What's your question?" And I said, My question is about health. Tell me about my health going forward. And then she said, why? Do you have a serious health issue now? And I'm thinking, shouldn't you be able to tell me that? I mean, if it's a serious health issue, you, the psychic, should be able to pick up on that, right?
That's right.
Okay. And I said, well, I have multiple health things going on right now.
Yeah.
And she said, well, are any of them really serious? And I'm again thinking, dude, I've told you I've got the multiple situations. I mean, how much information do you want me to give you? You've got to serve up something, right? I'm saying that on the inside. But what I tell her is, I said, and this is kind of like giving the game away. Not that it's a test, but I just feel like it's sort of weird. We're in this weird place.
Yeah.
I said, none of them are life-threatening, if that's what you mean. And she said, all right. She said, let me just take a moment. And then she does her thing where she's like looking up, looking down, going like this, whatever, you know. And then she says something super generic to the point that I don't even really remember what it was. It was like completely generic. I just thought this is weird. I mean, it's so clearly unpsychic of her to ask these questions and for the way we proceeded to this. But I thought of you guys watching, and I thought of you, Kim and Albert. And I wanted to know one thing for today, okay? And here's what I wanted to know. She's got a party. She's the most popular kid at the party, obviously. I told you about the long wait. Many people are in there doing this all night. She does the same dance with everybody. So I asked her this. I said, I'm not asking you about anyone specifically, but of all the readings that you've done here at this party tonight, what are the most common questions that people want answered? What's number one and number two? And I'm going to tell you, but first I want you to guess. People at a party, and I want to give you the demographic, Albert, because maybe at your party with younger people, it might have been a different kind of question. I don't know. You know, you might have asked about, I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to. So this demographic is 40 plus, okay? Pretty much 40 plus at this party. So what do you think was the most common question asked for the psychic to weigh in on from a party of people who are generally 40 plus, men and women? What would be your guess? Kim, what do you think?
Los Angeles, fancy party, probably some celebrities going on there. Will my marriage last? Is my husband or wife cheating on me?
Okay, I'll call that love life, okay? I'll call that love life. What about you, Albert?
I was thinking family, if they have kids, like, or I'm worried about are they gonna be fine, or end of life. Those are my two options. Like,
well, do you want to pick one or the
other? I'll pick the end of life. Like, am I gonna die? When am I gonna die?
Okay. So, and what are people guessing in the chat? Romance, health, money. Yeah, those are not. That's.
Will I be audited?
Again, I need one guess. Yeah, don't give me 5 guesses. Love, relationships, says Square. Will I be audited, says Champagne. I'll call that money, though. That's a legit thing. Will my facelift hold up? Relationship issue. All right. The number one topic and question asked to the psychic at this party was about career. And that's right. Career. Number 2 was romance, love life. And number 3 was health. I got the impression that I was like the only person who asked about health. I said, well, has anybody asked that? And she said, well, I'm not really allowed to, excuse me, security clearance psychic, but I'm not asking you who asked. I'm just saying. So anyway, it was romance and career, but career was number 1. People are concerned with their future, with their career future. So that was my big psychic experience, and it was
What's that sound like in Hollywood? Like, when am I going to make it big? Or am I going to, will my fame last until, I'm ready to retire? Is
will
the
my
next
script,
big movie
will my
role?
script ever get made? I mean, it's not always on camera, people. It's always, a lot of people are trying to do. There was a director there from CSI, I think, and or NCIS, and a lot of people who you may not recognize when you look at them, but they're involved in all parts of that world. So anyway, I was a bit underwhelmed by the psychic. I'll be honest with you. Kim, I don't need the psychic to be real. Okay, I don't need the holy man to be really connected to the divine. I like a show. That's what I like. You know that. Give me all the bells and whistles. Give me the crystal ball, the music, whatever it is, the darkness, the lighting. That's all I need. I don't need you to actually predict the future. And I just didn't think that, it was a little too much of a conversation,
Well, she was an actress, right? She probably wasn't a real psychic. If there
Actually,
is a real psychic.
She told me she's a graduate student in psychology.
Oh, there you go.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was last thing I was on a telethon, and it might have been in the Bay Area. And between pledge breaks, it was one of those things. The psychic that they had on came over to me and said, "I'm seeing you come into some money."
Oh.
I said, "Oh, that's interesting." She said, "Yeah, absolutely." She said,
and you said, keep talking.
I said, "Yeah." I said, "How much money?" And she said, $3,461. I said, "Wow, that's such a specific amount." She said, "That's the amount that's coming about, $3,461. Well, wow, okay. So I wrote the number down, $3,461. And I asked her about, how it's going to come to me, whatever. She said, "I don't know. I'm just seeing that it's going to come to you." And of course, no money came to me, but then this is what I did. I started taking little amounts of money that were coming to me, adding them up to see if they added up to $3,461. But they didn't. So she missed on both, but it was a nice thought. All right. Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
Yeah, that was a little bit of my psychic experience. What do we want to do here, Albert and Kim? Would you like to do a quick news capsule, and then I want to talk to our children's author.
Okay, Lee. Yeah, she's coming up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Karen Dawn, bottom of the hour, and we'll talk a little bit more about Bob Barker, the animal activist. And if I've got time, I'll squeeze in a chunk of Trump, which is pretty juicy. Don't worry, if I don't get it in today, I'll get it in tomorrow. But all right, much to do. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by the very fine people at Coachella Valley Coffee Company.
I just got another couple of bags that came in today. The Ocotillo espresso and the El Gato espresso are my favorites.
Fancy.
But more on that later. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have to tell you that right now I'm drinking the ginger mint tea, and it is amazing.
I love it. I love it.
It's fantastic.
All right.
All right. So this, again, this report sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee Company. And in the news, former President Trump will be arraigned in his Georgia election interference case next week. A Fulton County Superior Court judge scheduling the arraignment for all 19 co-defendants in the case September 6th. Trump will be the first to be arraigned at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time that day, September 6th. And in another case, former President Trump's federal 2020 election interference case will begin in the middle of the Republican presidential primaries. Today, the judge scheduling the trial to start March 4th of 2024, which is the day before Super Tuesday.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Another vigil planned for tonight, this one following a really disturbing case, a racially motivated shooting that killed 3 people in Jacksonville over the weekend. Community leaders are expected to gather downtown this evening as they call on state lawmakers to take action against white supremacy. Sheriff T.K. Waters says 3 black people were killed when a 21-year-old gunman opened fire at a Dollar General on Saturday. The FBI is now investigating this shooting as a hate crime.
Well, he had Nazi engraving on his pistol. He posted hateful, racist, Nazi-related material on various social media platforms. He had a manifesto. I love how they call it. I mean, but it was full of hate. And this guy was a racist horror show. And of course, he, in the United States of guns, he can get a weapon and take out his horror on others, innocent people. And when you read about those who lost their lives, it's even more heartbreaking, as it always is. And the last thing I will say on this is that Ron DeSantis went there. Mm-hmm. Ron DeSantis was booed. His anticipated arrival, I guess it might have been anticipated by a couple of other high-profile officials there, but most of the crowd wasn't expecting to see him. And he was booed. And sorry, but the reality is what he's doing in Florida is awful, and it does gin up hate. Slaves benefited from, whatever, the dry cleaning of history, the way he's trying to, the complete invalidation of advanced placement African-American studies. I mean, this is all going on in Florida at the behest of Ron DeSantis. So it's not a surprise that he was booed.
No, and you mentioned all the things that have happened there with the talk about, the ridiculous things about slavery and then the taking away of the AP African-American classes. And it all seems little like maybe, that's another eye-rolling thing, but it all adds up, right?
It adds up and it animates hate. Yeah. And so, again, he has no place in, where he was standing over the bloodshed that had just occurred.
Let's talk about Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Actually, no. Let's talk about former Los Angeles City Councilman and LA County Supervisor, featured here, Mark Ridley Thomas, who has been sentenced to 3 years, 6 months in prison for corruption. When he was county supervisor, Ridley Thomas voted in favor of county contracts that would benefit USC. At the same time, the university was giving him benefits for his son. Hey, that's not allowed. Prosecutors are expected to ask a federal judge for a 6-year prison sentence. The defense is pushing for home confinement, community service, and a fine, but no time behind bars. So we'll see how that works out. Speaking, though, of Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, he's saying additional interest rates increases could be coming. Speaking from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, late last week, Powell said inflation has fallen over the last several months, but it's still too high. He said the agency is dedicated to getting inflation down to 2%. He says the Fed will remain flexible, though, as it considers future moves, but do expect that interest rate increases could be a-coming. And Zillow Home Loans is unveiling a new program, kind of interesting. It includes 1% down payments on homes. So home buyers with challenges affording to buy will have Zillow paying an additional 2% through the program. That brings the total down payment to 3%, the usual minimum payment needed for a home loan. The new program comes as mortgage rates soar over 7%, and home prices continue to go on the rise, leaving home sales to drop dramatically over the last year. And I actually
was at that party I mentioned. I talked to a real estate agent who said because of the tax on mansions, they call it the mansion tax in California.
So it's so sorry for people.
It's on properties. I know it's hard to say. That's what was so awkward about this conversation.
Paying a little more for your mansion, are you?
Yeah, It's never going to be a tax I have to worry about. $5 million is when it kicks in. So she says, I've got a lot of listings right now at $4,999.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
The high-end real estate world, Kim, you understand.
Oh, no, I don't actually, but yes, kind of. With Labor Day approaching, USDA Forest Service says it's National Preparedness Month now. This is pretty important, especially here in California, right? So if you plan to visit public lands, they say plan ahead, recreate responsibly, plan for heat, use sunscreen, hydrate, early afternoon hikes, not late afternoon. And they're asking people Watch for hazardous trees because a lot of them are dried out and at risk of falling. Watch for high water. Leave your site cleaner than you found it, and minimize campfire impacts by knowing the fire restrictions before you head out, or use a portable camp stove for the least impact. Don't be the one that kicks off the fire, right? I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show, sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee Company, and you can get the exclusive Mark Thompson Show deal. It is a 10% off exclusive, beautiful deal from Coachella Valley Coffee.
It's an exclusive, beautiful deal.
There it is.
There's never been anything like this. Wouldn't you say?
There's never been anything like this.
It's an exclusive.
It's bigly deal. Yes. Mark T is what you type in at the code at the checkout to get your 10% exclusive deal off. And Coachella Valley Coffee Company, we thank them for sponsoring the show and the newscast and their coffee and their tea. Amazing.
It's for anything on the site. You can get 10% off. Just put Mark T in at checkout and grab the discount code. As I say, you grab the bean that you like the most. I like some of the heavier stuff, so you might like a medium roast, or I mean, if they roast it all by hand, they're spectacular. So proud to have them on the show.
You know, I got the tea, and yeah, I made this ginger mint tea last night that I'm still drinking this morning. They send you special little tea bags for their loose leaf tea. It's so cute the way they send it.
They have a lot of that stuff, like the accoutrements associated with everything. They'll even have instructions on French press, and like if you want to, they'll send them along to you if you ask. So they really want you to have a great tasting experience. So, and as I told you, it's all fresh crop. That's the reason it's a little bit more. When you go there, you can find cheaper coffee, but that's all old crop. That's the reason they can dip. Be careful with discount coffee beans, because that's old crop. You want fresh crop, and this is magnificent and fresh. And you get 10% off anyway, so use that code at checkout for 10% off Mark T. So great to have them on the show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, we are way behind, but I'm so excited to have this person join us. She is a Northern California writer, everybody. I love my NorCal writers. Lea Askenas, is that how you say your last name, Lee? Lee, this is, am I anywhere close to that being correct?
You are. Good job. Yeah, Lea Askenas.
No, thank you very much. She's written book reviews, articles for the Washington Post, Book World, LA Review of Books, and Salon. And she's done a travel memoir. I just like to establish your bona fides before we get into our conversation. She did a travel memoir on Cuba. And I guess you have a real love of Cuba, which is I want to ask you about, because your little girl in this story, in this children's story, which is so sweet and so great, and I really enjoyed it. With great illustrations, by the way. The illustrations are done by a husband-wife team. Is that right?
Yes. And I was so pleased when I saw them.
Yeah. And so this story is accompanied by these magnificent illustrations, but it takes place, to my point, it's a Cuban girl, right, who is involved in this. I wonder if you can give us a sense for what it is.
Yeah. So the book is Arletty's Abuelo and the Message in a Bottle. And it is based on the true story of this little girl, Arletty's, who on her 8th birthday finds a message in a bottle on a beach near her home in rural Cuba.
How did you find out that this, as you say, so I think the fact that it's based on a true story is really cool. How did you find out about this story to write about it?
Yeah, so in addition to writing, I'm a librarian, and I was working at a library in Sausalito, California. And my adult memoir, which is called Es Cuba, was just about to be published. So all of my coworkers knew about my connection with Cuba. And one of them said that there was this library patron who came in all the time and had this great story about Cuba. And she thought that I should meet him and maybe I'd want to write something about it. So I met him, and he was the man. He was the sailor who had written this message in a bottle.
Yeah. So in the story, this message literally is it's the message in the bottle stuff that we, hear about and know about even as kids. You know what I mean? It's this, but in this case, it actually connected. That is to say, the message in the bottle was received by another person.
Yes, and it really is extraordinary when you imagine that it like washes ashore on this beach, and it's this little girl's 8th birthday. And also her family lives on this very long street in rural Cuba. They had never left their street. Everything they needed was on it. The job, the school, their family. And this was their first trip outside of their street to go to this beach. And then it like ended up leading to this much bigger connection to the world. And also extraordinary is that the message was written in English and the family speaks Spanish. So they could make out the words United States. And the girl was so excited that her mother said, you know, we can write to it. They might not get the letter. They might not read Spanish, but her daughter insisted. And coincidentally, the sailor at that time was studying Spanish.
That's just, I mean, it's just so perfect. Where's the book? I thought I had it here. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I would have thought you'd be showing pictures from the book, Albert.
Do you want me to hold one up?
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
I'm sorry, Lee. This is the beautiful book.
There
and
you go.
You can see the illustration there on the cover.
Yes.
To be fair to Albert, I don't know if he has any of the if anything was included in the materials, but which is even better. If you can't do anything, yelling at him is even more fun. But it does end up this. This is found by this girl on this beach, and she begins this relationship. Now, what's kind of cool is like many true stories. She begins a relationship with this guy. I'm going to say relationship to be clear, like that. Thank you, Albert. That was very nicely done. The relationship then, eventually they meet. These two people who have corresponded. And they begin to correspond in ways other than the bottle, right?
They become pen pals. They write actual physical letters, and they send each other photos. And Arletis and her little sister Aurelis draw little pictures and send them to Steve the sailor.
Yeah, so he's a sailor. So he's into maps, and it's established that she's into maps, this little girl. And so they do meet, and he does spend, there's a visit, right? They actually visit, and they spend, he spends time with her family.
Yes. So when they're writing each other, and when
Spoiler alert, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I know. It's hard not to do that. Yeah. When they start writing each other and he sends a photo of himself, she sees that he's older, that he could be her grandfather. And she has never had a grandfather. She has grandmothers, but her grandfathers had died before she was born. So she starts calling him abuelo, or grandfather, Esteban, Steve. And she says, I hope that someday, like a real grandfather, you'll come visit me and my family.
That's just so great. Hey, because it was Cuba, was there some pushback from publishers who didn't want to? I mean, I'm just always, sadly, politics infests everything these days.
Yes, definitely. And so this story was a long time in getting published. I don't ultimately know if that was an issue with the children's book, but it did start out as a adult article before I'd met Arletis and her family. Just me interviewing Steve. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't name the publication, but there was a rather major publication in San Francisco that wanted to publish this. And at the time, Steve had gone to Cuba illegally because
I see.
You couldn't go without a group to Cuba. And so I needed to not use his last name. And the lawyers at this publication said, we can't have anonymous sources. And so I'd already signed the contract. I got paid a big kill fee, and the article did not get published there. So that was political, not so much on part of the paper, but the fact that I couldn't safely reveal his name.
And then this just feels so right for a movie or some kind of something. Have they Have they talked to you about that? Have you been approached by that? Have your people been?
I have not, but I would love it. I feel like it's very cinematic in both its settings in Cuba and Sausalito, California. And there's a much bigger backstory on either end because the book is a moment in time. It's the letters and the first visit. There's 2 subsequent visits, 20 years past, there's still a connection. So yeah, I think it would be a great movie.
I think you're right for all the reasons you just mentioned. So Lea Askenas, it's Arletas, Abuelo, and the Message in a Bottle. And it's a kid's book, and it's just great. I really, there's just enough going on to keep you kind of, it's a good little yarn, and the pictures are magnificent. So it really, congratulations, Lea. Really well done.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
in Sausalito. Do you still work in the library?
I still work at the library, but not that library. But I did go back there last month and I presented the book there, and that was really special.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah. Well, you're a real writer. I mean, as I say, you've written for a lot of stuff for adults, and but it's cool that you found this outlet and that it was received by your old colleagues there in the Sausalito Library. Lea, visit again, and congratulations on getting this published and on it getting released, and we look forward to your next project.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Lea Askenas, everyone. Love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah. I feel like there's a book inside this show. When Kim tells her tell-all, she writes her tell-all.
I've got a lot to say.
Yeah, I can see her
Just
taking
saying.
notes.
Yeah.
And inside Nikki's show, my show, and now she's got her own show. It's going to be kind of wild.
What it's really like to work with the top tier talent of KGO.
Yeah. It needs to be salacious. It needs to be something, to get people clickbaity, Salacious is a ding word. Anyway, apparently I said accoutrements, which would be a ding word. Thank you very much. When we come back, I do want to get to Karen, and Karen Dawn reports and sums up the world with animals. If I do that, there'll be time, Albert, for a chunk of Trump after that. What would you like to do? When should I do this chunk of Trump? I think people want it.
Yeah, I think we just do it now, and then if we have time, we'll get to the
cool.
news and then take care.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
Okay, all right. So let's do this. We do bowling with Biden. I try to be as fair as I can be. I can't help it that Trump steps in it a bit. So this is your moment. This is a chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, and this is no surprise to you, perhaps, the lawyers around Donald Trump are saying they are going to appeal the March 4th trial date that has now been set in his criminal election interference case. Again, Judge Tanya Chutkin delivered this ruling rejecting 2 different trial schedules that would put it off till, 2026.
Yeah.
And she also rejected, I'll remind you, the Jack Smith prosecutor's schedule, which would have had it moved up to January. But Donald Trump has vowed to appeal the decision and has attacked the judge more on social media. And of course, he's pleaded not guilty to this 4-count indictment, charging him with illegally conspiring to overturn his loss to President Joe Biden in the 2020 election. But there's something going on related to the scheduling that isn't so much law related as it is enjoyment related, I would say, leisure related. He's facing 91 felony charges, but he's complaining that the docket schedule interferes with the golf schedule, everyone.
You gotta be kidding me.
Donald Trump has missed the Stay Sure PGA Seniors Championship in Scotland at his Trump International Golf Links location. And he blames, quote, crazed radical left lunatic, communist, Marxist, fascists. Wow, that's...
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Yeah. The tournament actually ran from the 23rd to the 27th, so it just wrapped up yesterday. And, of course, he took the 24th as his day to surrender for booking at the Fulton County Jail in Georgia. So he complained that, again, the demands of the legal docket and scheduling associated with surrendering there got in the way of his playing in this golf tournament. Now, before you take his side, because I know there are a lot of people who love their ex-president, he could have turned himself in any time. He had 2 weeks before that Thursday. So he could have turned himself in early, gone to Scotland, and played golf. But he held out until the last day before the deadline. There are no limitations on Donald Trump's travel, by the way. So he can go to Scotland, he can leave the country, he can do whatever. So as tough as it may seem to you that the legal system has been, they haven't really roughed him up too badly. Anyway, he is he's angry, and he feels as though, in addition to everything else, that the docket is keeping him from the PGA Championship in Aberdeen, Scotland. He posted on my great course, I can't go. I have to stay. I have to stay around and fight off the crazed radical left lunatics, communists, Marxists, and fascists. I would want to be in Europe and want this country destroying scum to work their disgusting and illegal magic on unsuspecting Republican leaders who just don't think it's appropriate to fight fire with fire, but we will, this is all in caps, but we will win, make America great again. So, there you have it. He's angry about the entire legal system, but when it comes to golf, he's really angry. That is your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Smash the like button, of course.
With your iron rod.
A capsule newscast, and then Karen Dawn, and a look at Dawn Watch and Bob Barker in relation to his activist work. Karen already knows, always, I should say, knows the nooks and crannies of so many of these activists' work, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Kim's News next. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. A situation that's unfolding right now is underway at North Carolina Chapel Hill, where police say an armed, dangerous person remains at large on the campus there. Authorities have yet to confirm if anyone is injured or explain exactly what happened this afternoon, but police are urging everyone to remain sheltered in place as they search the buildings on the campus, which do remain on lockdown. Again, this going on at the North Carolina Chapel Hill campus. Officials on Maui are responding to very upset people. It says criticism, but this is more than criticism. This is outrage about barricades set up during the deadly Lahaina wildfires. Some reports say the barricades caused traffic congestion, trapping more people in the town as it burned down on August 8th. You can see the cars here that weren't able to make it free. Maui Police Chief John Pelletier defended the move, saying they helped save lives by keeping people away from the extremely dangerous areas. So the barricades, a real source of contention here, as people are pretty upset about why they were kept in certain zones. There's some tight security in place at the U.S. Open as it gets underway in Queens with the first round of men's and women's singles. Stories for you, Mark. New York Police Department Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Weiner says big crowds are expected today and that there will be some security that fans will see and some they will not. It's always been already been record attendance for a preview fan week at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center. It was the opening of a 200-year-old time capsule at West Point today. It turned out to be a big old bust. The small lead box found in May at the base of an 1829 monument was met with great fanfare. It turned out the scientist who examined the box found nothing but silt at the bottom. He promised, though, to sift through what was found to determine if anything was ever in that box. And there is a door standing alone in a field in western Minnesota, gaining attention after becoming the subject of discussion on social media. It's a blue door standing in front of a wooded area on County Highway 4 near Vergas, about 60 miles southeast of Fargo. A picture of the door generated interest on Reddit last year, and a more recent post on Facebook created even more talk about why it's there. While the owners of the property call the door an art project, they say they may add a lantern to create even more mystery. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow. Love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I love that. A door in a field. Who knows what it is?
Why is it there? Where is it going?
Why is it there?
Yeah.
Well, this is the... those who are watching on YouTube, I just want to welcome you. We're live every day from 11 until 1 Pacific time. And then the show can be consumed as a podcast. That's across all major podcast platforms. I'm kind of stalling a little bit right now. It might seem that way to you because I'm waiting to see how long it'll be before we take off that Mark Thompson Show news with Kim McAllister graphic.
Sure, I'll do it.
And we move it to... This is... I was going to blame Albert. But
I'll take the blame.
All right, I don't know. I mean,
Kim, how are you?
It's much harder for me to blame you.
No, just bring it on.
I look forward to talking to Karen Dawn because she honestly covers the world in terms of animal issues and just what's going on. Animals are, we're animals, of course, and we're connected to them. And so when Bob Barker passed away, I thought, wow, I'll bet you Karen has some stuff to say about that, too. So anyway, without any further delay, Karen Dawn, everyone. She's the author of Dawn Watch. And people can get Dawn Watch. You can subscribe, right? I do. Yeah.
I hope they will. I hope people will go to dawnwatch.com and subscribe is the button you hit. And then you'll get regular alerts as to what's going on in the media with animals and what you can do to help. And the main thing we encourage people to do to help is to make sure animals have a voice in major media. So that's what Dawn Watch does.
Now, talk to me about Bob Barker. Talk to me about thoughts, what you're hearing. I know you wanted to react to something you saw in the chat. I wonder if you could just speak to this guy who was obviously a giant in media and broadcast and as a host of so many things, Price is Right, 35 years, but also was this remarkable animal activist before it was quite the movement that it's become in the last 20 years.
Yeah, he was way ahead of the time on it, way ahead of the time. And it was not just sort of a passing interest. He devoted his life to it. He gave more money to it than anything else. It's funny when you introduced me and you said that I, focus on what's going on with animals. The thing I wanted to address in the chat goes to why I focus on animals, why some of us choose to focus on animals. And it came from a wonderful comment I really appreciate from Vicky, who brought up the issue of Bob Barker, that he was basically happy to support the Miss America pageant, except for the fur issue. And I am not a fan of beauty pageants and was a feminist before I was an animal rights activist. In fact, Gloria Steinem is one of my mentors, somebody I love dearly. And incidentally, her husband was a major animal rights activist who I used to work with on the Genesis Awards. And so, and it's not surprising that if a lead feminist is going to fall for somebody, it's going to be an animal rights activist. So Vicky, I love that you brought up beauty pageants. Here's the thing. And forgive me if I got this wrong. I think the question went something like, I wish he had showed as much compassion for the women in the pageants as he did for animals. And the problem with that question is it suggesting that the women in the pageant were in some way treated similarly to how animals are treated. And I sent Albert some video of fur farming footage in case he wants to distress you guys. And there's no blood in this. This is just how the animals are kept. This is how they live their whole lives until they are taken out and anally electrocuted, because that's the method of killing that doesn't lead to blood on the fur, and then skinned. And I have no doubt that if the women in those beauty pageants were kept like this right up until show day, and then afterwards were skinned so that we could wear their fur, Bob Barker would not have been doing those pageants, and would have definitely been showing the women just as much compassion. Now, so my point there is that if he had refused to do the Miss America pageant until they ended Best in Show, until they ended dog beauty pageants, then the phrasing on that question would have been more accurate. So I have those of us in the animal rights world, some of us, the reason we're in it is because that there is people don't get that all things being equal, we might care just as much about human issues as animal issues, but things are so grossly unequal. And just, to look at what happens to animals, what you saw in that video of how they're kept for their whole lives. Thank heavens, though, horrible, horrible things happen to humans. It's not legal anywhere to keep them in that kind of condition that we just saw, and then to electrocute them and skin them. So that is why he was, before he knew better, and this was in 1987, that he was supporting beauty pageants, except for the fur thing. So I have no doubt that in the 2020s, there's no way he would have still been happily supporting beauty contests without the awareness of feminist issues. Of course,
yeah, but I think you've made the point perfectly. When just on the animal issue, I mean, these beauty pageant contestants, et cetera. It's a life they've chosen. They're excited to be there. Often, I mean, you can hear, and I'm not suggesting. I don't watch them. I don't like them. I don't like the judging of. I've actually had to be part of the. They used to do those bachelor auctions where you have to walk down a runway and people bid on an evening with you to raise money for charity. I didn't like that. And I remember saying, I can't imagine having people, they're actually assigning amount of money to go out with me. Like, $500 for a dinner with Mark Thompson is like crazy. There are other people there, like athletes and stuff, and they're getting like $5,000 or whatever it was. But my point is, the idea of being judged by anyone and having a value, a numerical value assigned to either your beauty, your talent, whatever, it's very, very rough and a humiliating process. But
Mark,
there's no parallel between that and animals. Go ahead.
Just because I was watching the chat while you were hosting, in honor of a beautiful point Vicky made, and she didn't go into it, was that she said, somebody responded to her, well, it's a life they're chosen. And there is some truth in that. It's an important point. But, that's, as your animal guest, I'm not going to go down that road and say, what, we can argue about what kind of choices all of these people have. It's like when poor young men go into the army, how much choice do they have? So I'm not arguing it from it's a life they've chosen. I'm arguing it from what those women are going through isn't quite comparable to what animals go through. And it never is. What animals go through is just so profoundly and completely worse than anything we ever put women through. And, PETA gets in a lot of trouble for being willing to objectify women in order to make their animal points. And I don't like it. I really don't like it. And so, Vicky, I'm with you. But, people, on the other hand, I don't want to criticize them too harshly, because animals need people appealing to from every walk of society, because they have it so bad. Nobody has it worse than animals have it.
So true. So I wanted to then ask you about Barker. He talk a bit about Sea Shepherd. He did a lot of work with just the ocean. You mentioned the fur thing, and we got off, and then the fur thing is just, it's heartbreaking and awful, and those poor creatures in those cages. By the way, they grow in those cages. Sometimes they grow, and their paws grow over the metal mesh, and they can't move. Imagine that. But they don't, again, they keep them just alive enough for their fur to be good. But anyway, apart from
you know what? I wish they had kept them just alive enough. They could do that by keeping them in a coma rather than keeping them fully conscious, desperate,
sentient, emotional. It's a desperate life.
Now,
but I wanted to.
I'm going to take my glasses off here. You mentioned Sea Shepherd, and I saw that
Yeah,
Albert had
exactly.
lined up there, and it's only 30 seconds long. If you guys want to perhaps play it with the sound on, it's quite lovely.
This is their salute.
Sound's not on. So,
No, we're hearing it. We're hearing it. Yeah, that's the sea shepherd salute. Horn.
I didn't hear the volume, the mournful sound of the ship's horn. Did you guys hear that? That's what's
Kim, couldn't you hear
on
that?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it. I just had to turn it down. It was really, really loud. But yeah, it was playing.
We heard it. Yeah, it was just. I mean,
And
it's
the
a very
reason
moving.
Sea Shepherd responded like that is he gave them $5 million some years ago. Captain Paul told Bob Barker that if we had $5 million, we could end the Japanese whaling in the South Seas. And Barker said, let's go. And with that $5 million, they bought a ship and they named it the Bob Barker. And indeed, Japanese whaling, I think it was a couple of years now, they took a moratorium that they have not come back from. So that man was largely responsible for the end of Japanese whaling in the South Seas, as just one of his many contributions. He also, as a true animal rights person, and I was just thinking how much he would have appreciated our conversation about how much worse animals have it than everybody else. He fought hard to get Billy the elephant out of the zoo in Los Angeles. And it was so interesting that he and Betty White, I saw, some people say, and this is Billy, for those who are watching, they'll see him. He basically spends his life standing there, bobbing and nodding his head and bobbing his head. And that's a stereotypical behavior that elephants do not do in the wild. They only do it in zoos. Because what else could he do? He's got 1 acre to live on, which he could, go for another walk around his 1 acre. But this is how he spends his life. And if you hear the audio on this, you hear children, oh, look at the elephant. And then you've got this miserable, miserable creature spending his life bobbing his head. And Betty White and Bob Barker had a falling out because Betty White was a big supporter of zoos. And she's known as an animal advocate, not an animal rights advocate, but an animal advocate. And that's the difference between rights and welfare. And I support both, as you know, but those of us who stand for animal rights don't think that Billy belongs in the zoo. And that the fact that we want to look at him and show him to our kids is no reason to lock him up for his whole life. And so Betty White was arguing that we just need to give him better conditions. And Bob Barker was doing everything he could to get Billy out of there to a place where he'd have hundreds of acres to walk around and members of his own species to hang out with and some semblance of a life. The life that we took from him, much like we took Lolita's life, Billy was taken from the wild. To take an elephant from the wild almost always means to shoot their mother, because mummy elephants don't let their babies be taken from them. And so he would have seen his mummy shot right in front of him. And he's been in the zoo ever since he was about 4 years old.
The elephant.
Barker was doing everything he could to get him out of there.
The elephant world is, for another time, a really troubling one. But I mean, captivity and getting them into captivity and what happens and how it all goes down. It's just, even in societies that claim to celebrate them, it's just awful. But so Barker essentially, in closing, he was he was somebody who had very strong principles. He followed them up with massive donations to all of these charities to which you referred, Sea Shepherd among them. And
Yes.
it really became a defining aspect of who he continued to be after he left Price is Right.
And I love that, he was such a man of principle, and so much of his money went to things that he stood for. And he was do you have any photos of him young? I mean, he was still lovely looking when he was older too, but he was so handsome and so charming and so freaking funny. And you spoke about that, Mark, and his manager, I think it was you had on, spoke about that. Just quick-witted, and it just goes to show you can be a person with principles without being extraordinarily dull. And you can be a wondrous person in entertainment and still strongly stand by those principles. And that was him. He was outrageously charming and incredibly kind and a person of principle above all else.
Yeah, yeah. That's not him, is it?
I don't know.
That looks, I mean, it's beagles and dogs and another.
That would be him.
That is him?
Yeah, I got this from NBC News, so we could blame them, Mark, if you want.
Whoever is producing
this
NBC
thing
News
has no idea what they're doing.
All right.
And he talked so often about spay neuter, but he also was involved with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So if he's hanging out with beagles, it might have been against animal testing, because he was such a strong voice for Physicians Committee as well.
I love that you've reflected on him a bit, and his work that he was. I remember attending a Sea Shepherd benefit, and my dear friend, who was maybe one of the biggest losses in my life, Sam Simon, who was one of the creators of The Simpsons, and Sam was an insanely generous supporter of Sea Shepherd and a lot of these charities to which Karen's referred. And they were both at a Sea Shepherd benefit, and Barker, and this is how funny Barker is, Barker gets up there after Sam has just donated some immense amount of money, because they show up and it's just, real big donation is coming. Sam used to match all the donations in the room. That was his big thing. Every donation tonight will be doubled by Sam Simon. So Barker comes on. He was getting some award from Sea Shepherd for his generosity. And he said, "I'm just here to out-donate Sam Simon." He said, "That's the only reason I come to these. Every time I hear Sam Simon's going to be there, he goes, oh my God, I'm just going to have to be." And so they had this sort of dueling righteousness all for this great cause, Sea Shepherd. They both had boats named after them, but Barker's legacy, from what I was talking to his publicist about, it still, provides for those contributions to continue. So that's really great.
Mark, I don't know if you're aware, if you remember, that part of Sam's legacy is me being on this show right now, because I met you at that event. And through
I
Mindy,
didn't remember
the
that.
wonderful Mindy from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine.
And they are a great group, PCRM. That would be great to get somebody from PCRM on here. Wow, that's terrific. I didn't remember that. That's awesome. Well, I think you're a great treasure and a jewel and a resource. So I would encourage people to I would encourage people to go to Karen's Dawn Watch and subscribe. It's dawnwatch.com. And there's every manner of things. And a lot of the news out of your newsletter is positive, which is what's really cool. So I encourage people, dawnwatch.com, for more information. Karen, love talking to you.
Performing footage.
Yeah, that's right. It's there's a lot more going on than the sadness.
Sometimes it's announcements that places like California have banned fur. So
right. No, we've really awakened a lot to the cruelty. So it's anyway, great to have you in our mix every Monday. Karen Dawn, everybody. Bye, Karen. Bye-bye.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I learned something from her moments ago. I had never considered the difference between an animal rights activist and an animal advocate. The difference between Betty White and Bob Barker. That's so fascinating how they both loved animals, but they had a different attitude as to how they should be protected or helped.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a really key distinction, and one that she made. I have a couple of things, Albert. I'm wondering if I can just mention a couple of things here in our last few minutes, Albert. Is there any agenda-related item that I need to attend to?
Nothing on the agenda. We have a couple contributions, but we can get to that later after your stories.
Okay, we are we're crowd-funded, of course. We appreciate all contributions all the time. Sadly, we've got to pitch you from time to time on
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will tell you that, and this is not a surprise, but I made the point here that the mugshot of Donald Trump that Kim was celebrating along with many others, and don't get me wrong, I celebrate the process of justice, but this mugshot isn't the old school mugshot that you wanted. You can say, I love seeing him like this, I love, oh my God, look at him, he really got owned it. No, he didn't. That's a pretty good picture of him, and it's a studied look. I'm sure he rehearsed it, or at least maybe he can naturally hit that pose. But look how small the logo for the Fulton County Jail is. And what you really wanted, let's be honest, you wanted the old school mugshot where he's holding up the numbers. That's what we are all thinking of when we say mugshot. So it will come as no surprise to you then that mugshot, which I say, I don't think was this, embarrassing, awful look. You wanted the Nick Nolte look. Remember the Nick Nolte mugshot? Albert, can you find the Nick Nolte? Nick Nolte had the mugshot that you're thinking you might get some version of with Donald Trump, but you don't. You got a really nice, blow-dried kind of mugshot. And again, he's not holding up the numbers. So he has raised $7.1 million since he was booked in an Atlanta jail. And by the way, this piece is 2 days old, so he's probably 10 million. But when I saw how much he'd in the first 2 days raised, see, that's the Nick Nolte mugshot. That's the mugshot that you thought you were going to get, not to necessarily get that, but some version of a disheveled. No, Trump
There's
was
never been
allowed
anything like this.
Time to go in. He was allowed time to put himself together, and that's what you're going to get when you give somebody time like that. So anyway, off of that shot, in the first 2 days, he raised $7.1 million. He made it the single highest 24-hour period of his campaign to date when it came to fundraising. And the tagline, Never Surrender, by now you know it's on T-shirts and all kinds of merch from $12 to $34. So Trump Inc. is turning this into a big moment. And it's a fundraising bonanza for Donald Trump. So again, in the new America, everything is sort of an opportunity, but Trump's got his loyal followers, and they really jumped on the mugshot possibilities. Now, to Oakland. What's going on with the A's?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Their stadium won't be finished in Las Vegas. Isn't that right, Albert? I ask you because you're the commissioner of sports on this show. So what they want to do is they want some place to play for next season, right? Anyway, the idea is that, Albert's taking a smoke.
Yeah, Albert, thank you.
Yeah, all right. The lease at the Coliseum is going to expire, and so they're looking for a place to play. I mean, literally, you've got a baseball team with no place to play. So they went back to the Coliseum, I think, right? And they said, hey, can we get like sort of one more add-on? And I think the Coliseum wasn't too big on it, right? I mean, that's my understanding. So then they go.
Obviously, it's a little difficult with them wanting to leave, obviously. So it makes no sense. But yeah, they need somewhere to play.
It could happen that they renew this lease at the Coliseum in Oakland, but meantime, they're exploring every possibility. One of which is that they could play at Oracle when the Giants aren't playing there.
I thought
so
that
you would have
allowed.
what?
They can't do that because isn't there something that says the A's can't be in the Giants like zone?
Yeah,
of
so that's
geography?
why that's what nixed the whole San Jose possibility. That was the San Francisco Giants territory, so you can't really encroach there. So we saw this
we
with
have
the
processes
Chargers.
and protocols and standards.
Yeah, so
You remember the Chargers in the years past? They were in San Diego. They actually played in some really, really tiny stadium in between moving to LA. So that might be one of the situations here for the A's. I don't even know where. So Sacramento, I don't. Yeah, I think that's also with the Giants now. So I don't
They
know where
have
they're
a
gonna play.
farm team, the A's, right? And I believe their farm team plays somewhere in Nevada. So they might be able to do it. But, when you're playing in front of a farm team crowd, it's not even a stadium. It's like a little, oftentimes it would maybe look like a little league field,
Yeah, and
So,
I think the closest one in proximity would be their Stockton affiliate, which is just a single A ball, which, I mean, that might be the exact amount of people that are showing up to A's games nowadays, which is sad to say.
Right. So they're really
that's
going to be in
close to
kind of
20.
this hibernation season, right? And remember, other teams have to go to that venue as well. It's really a weird place. The A's really got screwed on this. The A's should have had that deal, and they should be in Oakland, and there should be a place for them to play. And it's really sad that they're now, running around looking for some place that will be able to house them and for them to have a place to play ball until their stadium is done in Vegas. So a very uncool and sad chapter in what is an uncool and sad look generally for the A's.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And the other thing I wanted to mention to you on the way out was I might save this for tomorrow, Albert, and do a That's Rich. Tomorrow I want to talk about this crew in Silicon Valley, these tech bros, and how they're trying to build their own city with, they all feel there's a certain, and by the way, some of them are really cool, but some of them kind of feel like, hey, why can't I get my own school system and my own healthcare system and my own fill in the blank and my own police force, my own fire department, my own world, because we're all wealthy enough and we're tired of being taxed and getting nothing. And it's born of, I think, some of that, this sort of righteous indignation. And so they are working on making a deal to get a huge chunk of land and really sort of set up, gazillionaireville, where their kids can go to those schools. And so we'll talk about that. And then tomorrow also, I want to talk about the young, rich tech workers and where they're ending up. So let's do it. We'll do a That's Rich, and we'll talk about some of this. Tomorrow also, I want to talk to David K. Johnston about the 14th Amendment and the attempts to disqualify, essentially, Donald Trump for eligibility in the presidential election based on the fact that he was part of a coup or part of an attempted coup. So I see believe it or not, a downside to that, but I'm looking forward to talking to David K. Johnston about it tomorrow. Kim, you had something?
I just find that whole story fascinating, and I don't know why a suit hasn't been brought to discuss whether or not the 14th Amendment applies in this situation, why it's not moving forward, because the people that are behind it are legal scholars, conservatives. So if they say it has merit, why isn't it being more thoroughly explored? I'll be interested
Kim, how are you?
to hear what Mr. Johnston has to say.
I will as well, and then I will share a little bit of what I'm thinking as to the downside. So even if you could do it, the downside. So tomorrow, That's Rich, Stories from the Sky, updates across the board on all the legal proceedings, and then, as we mentioned, David K. Johnston on just that issue. Now, Albert, what do I have to do? I want to honor the... How about a Tom Gunn? Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Here's a super sticker from Tom Gunn. Thank you, everybody who contributes to the show on an ongoing basis. So appreciate it. $5 from Spencer Jaffe.
We'll
do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, I will do it live for Spencer Jaffe. Thank you, Spencer. And everybody, Pinky, for usually $1 a day, $3.99. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pink. And Vicky in Sausalito, great show, Mark. I'm looking forward to tonight. Yeah, Vicky is going to be that. It's going to
Thank you so
much, Vicky. Thank you so much. There's a certain dignity to the proceedings tonight, and also, might I say, a certain festive quality. Looking for a party tonight. I think it's going to be fun. From $9.99, Debbie in the super chat says, Trump is loving every minute of it except pouting about missing golf tournament in Scotland. They're probably glad he's not there. Yeah, well, he brings the party wherever he goes, the grievance party, though. So tonight, 7 o'clock is the virtual meet and greet, and we do our virtual meetup. I think it's going to be fun, and we'll report back tomorrow on all of that. I believe, and I'm not sure, but the after party live is starting right after this. Yeah. I love an after party, and I love it to be live. So that'll be over on the After Party Live channel.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
We'll do the After Party Live. You'll write it and you'll do it live. Kim, I will see you tonight.
I'll see you
Albert,
there.
Albert, you'll be there tonight, right, Albert?
Yeah, I'll stop in.
All right.
Albert, thank you.
Tony will be there. Kim, John Daly, the crew. And when we report back to you tomorrow. You know, it's interesting, Chris. I talked to Pat Thurston a couple of weeks ago. Somebody's saying in the chat, I'm expecting Pat Thurston to be on next. I know, it's weird. She is going to visit soon, so we'll get that organized. Thanks, everybody. Big show. And rest in peace, Bob Barker.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Until tomorrow.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.